Hello and welcome my friends to my channel. My name is Domi, aka the Yugi Joker, and you might be wondering, damn, where were you the last 2 months? To be honest with you, I had a lot to do. So I currently got a new job, which is a little bit time consuming. In addition to that, I was able to get myself a little bit into video cutting. This is why I chose to wait a little bit more until I felt comfortable with using the video editor to make the videos a little bit more appealing. Today I have something very special for you. I have 2 test matches versus member of the Purple Haze Yu-Gi-Oh team, and I actually applied to join their team, and in some days or maybe a week or two I'll be getting a notification whether I was able to join them or not. And today I want to run you through our gameplay, tell you a little bit of my thoughts behind some plays and how I managed to win or lose one of the matches. We'll see. And well, let's just say, let's have a good time and let's get right into it. So here we have it. We have the first duel from myself versus PH Jude. And I would say let's just hop right into the match. So first of all, of course, the rock, paper, scissors. You see, I win the rock, paper, scissors and decide to go first. And as always, I'm not going to show the opponent's hand, so we actually see the gameplay just as an point of view of the player, which is me in this case. And you can see my opening hand is Drytron Nova, Drytron Alpha, Eva, Foolish Burial, and Drytron Gamma. So it's a pretty good hand. We have at least 2 extenders, we have 2 Drytron names. So for going first, this is actually really good. So I'm going to start up with Drytron Nova. And since we have Alpha and Gamma, obviously I'm going to choose Zeta to summon. And then I try to use Alpha. Alpha resolves and I get my Benten. And just for your information, this Alpha should have been in defense because the Drytron cards just summon themselves in defense position. But actually this doesn't matter in this case, just for your own information. So now I'm going to try use Zeta, tributing of course the Benten. And now you see I have my Eva in hand. And I have 2 decisions with Benten. So the first one I can use is I'm going straight into the Diviner of Heralds. And the second one is I can use Benten to search a Herald of Arclight. So I'm more protected from hand traps from my opponent. So the first 2 Drytron names actually got through. So I don't think my opponent has anything like an Ash or something like this or a Droll. So it's still fear something like Nibiru or something like that. So that's why I chose Benten to add my Orange Light. So obviously this diminishes one of the Beatrice plays because I can use Beatrice a little bit more free and dump whatever I need. And in this case, I already have 1 negate in hand. And obviously my opponent is a very good player, so I expect him to know that I already have another Fairy in hand, or at least have the Diviner in hand, so he knows when I search Herald of Orange Light, I actually can use it. So this is not like a bluff or anything, this is actually something I expect my opponent to know. Then I try to overlay for Mubeta, use its effect, even that is going through, and I dump the last missing piece, which is Delta. So now Delta can use its effect to tribute Gamma in hand. And now my opponent knows I have all the names in circulation, so this is pretty good. Now reveal the Drytron Meteorus, which of course my opponent knows because I just added it, and I get a free draw. Now I draw into Redder's Fusion. You know, I use the Dragoon package, and I had 2 options here. I could use Benten, summon it back, detach material from Mubeta, and then use a Delta, but I actually chose to not do it on this effect because I wanted to know what my random draw is, so I can choose Benten adds. So for example, I could have drawn into Diviner, then I hadn't to use Benten to search Diviner. But in this case, this is just a bad draw. It's a brick. I cannot send it from Anaconda, and I have no way to shuffle it back. So I'm actually playing at the end with 1 less negate, but that's totally fine. Drytron is still very strong and can do different plays. So now I'm going to use Meteorus, summon back the Benten. And the detach here doesn't really matter since Mubeta will eventually use both of its materials and just want to get them into grave for follow-up next turn. Now I use the Meteonis effect, adding it back, choosing the Mubeta, because of course Mubeta is not going to stay on the field for very long, so the attack reducing doesn't really matter that much. Now I'm gonna use Gamma, of course treating the Benten, get a lot of monsters on board, and use Benten to search my Diviner. So now you see I have full combo, I'm protected by Eva Orange Light, and I still have an extender in Foolish Burial. So I'm going to use Diviner, send Arclight, and search my Idleton. So Idleton is in this case just an extender, because for once I have the Beatrice to get access to Ultimateness, and for second I have Foolish Burial to get access to Ultimateness. So in this case, searching Ultimateness is just really redundant, and I wanted to have an extender. And obviously this can add back the Meteonis, and we already used Meteonis to add back itself, and this effect is once per turn. So now I'm going to use these two into IP Masquerena. Of course, this would have been the Anaconda, but I drew the Red Eyes Fusion. Now I'm going to use Meteonis, summon Idleton, use the effect to grab back the Meteonis, overlay them into Beatrice, and immediately use Beatrice effect to dump Eva. So now I'm getting even more protection from hand, and even if my opponent has Droplet or Dark Ruler no more, I still have negates in my hand to use them. So now Eva manages to searches the Orange Light and searches Diviner. So this is like 3 negates in hand. Obviously Eva can search another Orange Light, and I have Diviner for follow-up. So now I'm going to use Foolish Burial, dumping Ultimateness, and use Meteonis, tributing the last Drytron, and go into Ultimateness. So this is my end board. I have IP Masquerena into Mubeta for Unicorn. I can even use Beatrice to go for an Appaloosa, but I'm not actually sure if I use the Appaloosa in this build. I'm quite sure I still have it, but it doesn't really matter. I give turn to my opponent, and here's one little mistake. I did not use Beatrice in standby phase, so I actually didn't play around talents on Beatrice effect. But well, he uses Cyber Emergency. At this point, I know he's playing Drytron, so we have a mirror match. And now I use Beatrice, which is way too late. I should have used it in standby. And now he uses Droplet for 3 into Masquerena, Ultimateness, and Beatrice. So of course this is pretty strong for him, but he discarded the Alpha, and if I remember correctly, this Cyber Emergency searched the Alpha. So we can guess that the last card in hand is either a Drytron name or a Ritual. Otherwise, this would just be in bad, because Nova could have been negated as well. So this is kind of a risky play. He summons out a Beta, which is totally fine by me. Now he uses the first effect. I know the last card in hand is either a Called by the Grave, which is just game for me, but I had to use the Orange Light right here, so I can stop him from establishing anything. Now I can use Eva, search another negate, and now I'm in a pretty good spot, because I know the last card in hand cannot be Called by the Grave. I still have 2 negates in hand, plus a follow-up and the Red Eyes Fusion, and my opponent only has 1 card in hand, so there's only 1 card to tribute for any Drytron name, and if I just negate it, he's done, he cannot do anything. So now he tries to use it, I obviously chain Orange Light, and now game 1 goes to me. So second game he chose to go first, obviously with Drytron. And yeah, my hand is Diviner, Nibiru, Gamma, Droll, and Orange Light. So technically this is 3 going second cards, but I wanted to keep the Diviner in hand as it is a play starter. I have the Gamma as a Drytron name, and I have Droll and Nibiru, which are both pretty strong against Drytron. So he starts off by Diviner, using it, searching the Benten, and now my opponent just expected me to have Droll. He started to set cards, I threw the Drone Lockbird, and he passes. So I see he has 3 set cards, I know the Benten in hand, and the last card is unknown. So I just had to go for any place, so I started off with Diviner. Diviner trying to send Arclight, but he judgments the summon. So at this point, I'm just setting the Called by the Grave, giving the turn to my opponent. So now he has Alpha Benten, And at this point, I was like, I could potentially banish the Benten and then try to Nibiru him. And this is what I tried to do. Cold Buy on Benten, Alpha comes out, he has the ultimateness, and now he's expecting me to have Nibiru or another hand trap, because he's playing very, very safe. So now here comes Linkuribo, and he just attacks with these two. And I still don't know what these cards on the field are. Since I saw one judgment, I can expect, or at least guess, that one card of this is another judgment. But we'll see. Now I have Cyber Emergency, which can actually search me another Drytron name, which is perfectly fine. I obviously start to use with Alpha, so I can search my own Benten, Ultimateness, Idleton, etc. And he has Orange Light and Ultimateness. So these two go to grave, and my opponent only is on the top deck. So let's see what he top decks. It's an Ever, pretty strong for him. He can search follow-up, but he used the normal sum for Ever, so Diviner's not an option right now. But he still can search Idleton. No, not Idleton. I tell him that this is not a level 2 or lower, so he just puts it back. But he still has two fairies and can use Orange Light as an additional negate. So now he just attacks again with these two. And in this situation, I'm thinking, well, he has one negate in hand, he has two unknown sets, he has IP Masquerena into maybe Unicorn, so there are multiple interruptions on his side. But he also used Judgment, so he is on very low life points, and he's just attacking with very low attack monsters. So I'm trying to stay in the game as long as possible and not forfeit too early. So next card I drew is Idleton. So again, a ritual monster, pretty good to use for the Drytrons in grave. And this is what I do, use Alpha, Tribute, and now he has the another negate. Totally fine by me. I just pass on this, and he's still on top deck. And he also went through two Orange Lights, so there's less and less cards to interrupt me, and this is pretty good. Now he has Fafnir. Fafnir summons, uses Drytron Nova to summon Zeta. So now he can actually do some plays, and now let's count the summons since I have the Nibiru. This was summon number 1. Now he uses Alpha, summon number 2. Here's the Idleton. Summon number 3 for Zeta. Zeta searches Meteonis. Overlay into Mubeta, summon number 4. Gamma, now Meteonis comes out, and he summons Idleton. So Idleton gets back the Meteonis in hand, and when I Nibiru now, there's nothing that can trigger by tributes like Benten. Benten is banished, so this is not an option for him. And he technically only has the ritual spell in hand and 2 sets. So this is why I chose to Nibiru right now, before he can establish anything more. Because he was actually able to summon a Palooza there, which would have been bad. But yeah, we're just calculating the damage. So now drawing, of course, one of the bricks. Red as Black Dragon, which is fine. But I still can attack over the token, which is what I'm trying to do. And he reveals that the last card, or one of the last cards set, is a droplet. So of course I take a little bit of damage. The token survives, which is totally fine. And now I'm trying to think, what can I do? So I still can potentially normal summon the Orange Light, go into Anaconda, summon Dragoon, pop the token, and the problem is I won't have any cards in hand. But I know my opponent has only Meteonis in hand and a random unknown set card. So he's kind of top decking, and if I get rid of the token, he cannot attack over my monsters next turn. So this is why I'm still trying to use this, go into Orange Light and Nibiru for Anaconda. Anaconda activates effect. I now summon my Dragoon. And here it is. Pop the token. Obviously no damage. And then now he has to have another ritual monster, which is kind of weird since he already has Idleton and Ultimateness in his graveyard. So the last possible ritual he could draw is if he plays the Draconid. So he just sets 2 cards, totally fine by me. And now I draw Drolo Lockbird. So again, here I have 2 possible options. I could summon Drytron Lockbird, go into Nightmare Unicorn, and then have enough for lethal. But this is kind of risky because after that I have no negate for Dragoon, but I would be able to game it right here and don't give my opponent another chance of drawing anything good. The other option is I keep the Drytron Lockbird in hand, have a negate for Dragoon, or if he uses any Drytron effect I can draw him, but then he has another chance to top deck anything good. And I took the risky play, summoned draw, went into Unicorn, and I just thought, yeah, maybe this is game. But I remembered he has a droplet. He didn't negate the summon. If he negated the summon with like Judgment, I obviously can attack with Dragoon for game. So I was kind of feeling good, but now I attack with Dragoon, and he has droplet and a cold buy for my Dragoon, so the attack is halved. And then Unicorn attacks. So now he's on 300 life points, and you always know when you keep your opponent at a very low life point count, he always comes back. Always. This is just like an anime rule. Don't do this. But I had to do this in this situation. So the last set card is known. It's Meteonis Drytron. Now he top decks. And guess what he top decks? Draconitz. Was just talking about it. Draconitz was really good. So he summons Idleton, gets back the ritual spell. Now he can summon Gamma and Zeta. And he does a really safe play, goes into the Nightingale, attacks directly. I take only 400 damage, but I'm going to fix it when it's my turn. And he goes for Down Out and Zeus. And now he has to Zeus in his turn to get rid of Dragoon. Otherwise, next turn I just use Dragoon to pop it. So there's one Zeus gone. And I am now on the top deck. The card in his hand is known, but I have a lot of things in graveyard going for me. So I have to top deck something that lets me play through Zeus complete field send. And I top deck Diviner, which is like so perfect. Let's see how I managed to play around this Zeus. So yeah, here's the damage that was corrected. I'm going to summon Diviner, use the effect, and I had the option either use Entis, force the Zeus, pop it, and give my opponent another turn, but I'm only at 2.8k, so this is very, very risky. But I chose to use Herald of Arclight to search something, because I still haven't gone through my Benten, which could search possibly more cards. And it kind of could potentially force the Zeus. I'm just trying to force Zeus right now so I can attack for 300. So Arclight obviously searches the Benten. And if he just Zeus now, my Diviner's gone, fine, but then I can just go full Drytron combo again. So now I use Alpha effect. The interesting thing is why I use Alpha instead of Beta. No, it's not. It's Gamma. Sorry, it's Gamma. First of all, Alpha gives me a ritual, which all my rituals are fairies, and Benten can search me orange light. So I still will be able to have a negate in hand to play around the Zeus. And I guess my opponent didn't expect me to do this, but there was actually no way of him to stop this play. So now I use Benten, and now my opponent is still on the clock. When he used Zeus and chained Benten, of course my monsters here will be gone. Otherwise, I would be able to use Gamma in graveyard, Tribute Herald, and still have 2 monsters on board. So this is something he had to take care of, and let's see how this plays out. So I try to keep these 2 cards in hand so I can react to the Zeus. Now I use Gamma, completely free, have 2 monsters on board, and now I had again an option how to play this. The interesting thing I was thinking is, how can I out Zeus in this turn and then establish something my opponent cannot break with 1 card? My idea was I use my own Zeus. So overlay these 2 from Beta, just use the effect because I can. Sending Zeta, I didn't actually have it in graveyard yet, so this is really good follow-up. And now I just try to attack with Beta, go in main phase 2 into my own Zeus, wipe his Zeus, and after that I have Zeta, I have my ritual card in hand, and then can set up my ultimateness, have at least one negate, and my opponent is on just top decking anything, and I will just negate it and it's game. So my opponent knew this, and this was the very first game of our test matches. It was a clean 2-0. Obviously, I took some risks which were needed, but overall, I'm pretty happy. I took Drytron and played it for like 1 week now, and I'm sure my opponent played Drytron for a little bit longer than me. So I'm fairly positive I could show them that I can adapt to any deck and be able to do well with it, even though I haven't had the practice yet. That's it for the first duel. I'm gonna now record the second duel, and I hope you're gonna enjoy this as well. See you.